The depths of the world. Many words for it exist, but it's a place of wonder, a vast and far place called the ocean. A truly awe-inspiring and enigmatic zone of the Earth that encompasses nearly 70% of the planet. But what really happens in those deep blue waters? I would like to welcome you to the Marine Enthusiast Podcast, a podcast all about marine biology and everything ocean, where we demystify the sea and clear up misconceptions about all sorts of things. Today's episode is our fascinating episode all about marine technologies. We're your hosts for today,
Gwenevere,
Jenny,
and of course me, Skylar. In today's episode, we're going to discuss a variety of technologies that humanity has used to monitor, observe, and extract resources from the ocean. Science is elegant, 10 billion%. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to direct everyone's attention away from little old me to the wonderful Gwenevere for a short segment.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gwenevere, and in addition to being a proud host of the Marine Enthusiast Podcast, I am also the proud founder of the Persaud Foundation, a marine biological nonprofit organization based in the United States. We are extraordinarily proud to announce that we recently released a free online course on the subject of tide pools and the rocky intertidal zone. Tide pools are among the most dramatic and resilient ecosystems on Earth. Found along rocky shorelines, they form when the ocean recedes at low tide, leaving behind pockets of seawater filled with life. What looks like a quiet pool is truly a miniature world shaped by powerful forces, crashing waves, shifting tides, blazing sun, and sudden temperature swings. This course is an opportunity to learn more about the ocean, one of its fascinating ecosystems, and how you can safely explore it. To learn more or to register, please visit the persaudcatalog.org/courses. Again, that is thepersaudcatalog.org/courses. One last segment before diving into today's episode.
Now, if you know me personally, I'm a very straightforward person, which is why I'm not even going to introduce this properly and inform you all that we have our very own merchandise line. Thanks to our wonderful, wonderful artists, big shout out to them, we created cute and wonderful clothing that's perfect for you and any other marine enthusiast in your life. And yes, of course, no AI has been used and never will be used for our merchandise or anything related to the podcast. We're proudly non-certified all around, and that's 1 for the marine enthusiast and 0 for my public school district. They can, go drown. No, that's bad. Please don't drown. Our merchandise can be found at LinkTree/Marine Enthusiast, our website, and our creator screen, all available in the description of this episode. We're even offering a 5% discount to new buyers, redeemable at SeaLover5, all capital letters and the number 5, not the word, as usual. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think it would be really cool to not only have stylish and cute clothing, but it's also to support the greatest marine biology podcast in the world at the same time, because we put in a lot of work for nothing but a pocket of lint and a lollipop stick. So, really, anything's appreciated. Even just listening to this episode is enough. But if you really love us that much, it'd be nice if you wore something of ours and supported us. Again, that's LinkTree/Marine Enthusiast to support you and your red-eared slider named Charlie's favorite marine biological podcast.
Wow, okay. Quite like moon rovers, marine ROVs are typically medium-sized robots that you can use to explore the ocean while you're on land. Though some are super expensive ones can be as large as a car. Though I'm not too fond of robotics, my favorite ROV has to be Keiko, which reached the bottom of the Challenger Deep, aka the deepest point in the ocean that's known. While scientists mainly use ROV for deep sea exploration, considering the dangers of people going down there, ROVs can be used for any type of ocean exploration as one pleases. Sail drones are another type of marine robots. While they aren't considered ROVs, they are considered USVs, aka unmanned surface vehicles. They've been great for science as they measure and record things like salinity, wave heights, and wind patterns. Quite cool, if you ask me.
Okay, moving on from Turtle Exclusion Devices, we have Satellite Telemetry. This thing works fairly simply in a few steps by gathering information, in the most plausible case for marine-related affairs being the location of an animal, using thermal, infrared, or radar data. And the data they get is beamed to satellites, and the data is converted into radio waves for super fast transmission from a wimpy few kilobytes per second to an insane 200 gigabytes per second. For reference, you could probably download all 1,166 plus episodes of One Piece in less than 10 seconds, assuming one 20-minute long episode is 1 gigabyte. And using that crazy download speed, the data is relayed onto computers or data compilers to be stored on the computer and made into readable data. In the water, data is collected from buoys, underwater robots, and of course animal tags. On the topic of animal tags, some of you may own one or more of these, but there exist a few commercially available bracelets that also come with an animal they can track if you buy it. I personally don't have one, but it would be really cool if I did. It would be a really nice gift. I've always wanted one. Anyways, this is a simple explanation of how satellite telemetry works and doesn't account for other things like how exactly it's set up or the very extremely crystal clear process of why it works. But it's just a simple overview. Two notable applications of telemetry are WhaleSafe and DART, or Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis. WhaleSafe is an AI-powered tool designed to protect whales by sensing their presence in calls or physicality by using buoys and environmental data. We mentioned that it's AI-powered, but you have to remember that not all AI is inherently bad. Instead of jumping on a train which is trying to hate everything AI, do your research and understand that AI in the specific context isn't harmful. It's literally only generative AI, so just stop LARPing. However, this does not change the fact that no AI has been used with the podcast, never will be, as we mentioned. But this innovative program uses AI to predict and warn scientists of collisions that can potentially happen. DART, similar to WhaleSafe, are sensors that sit on the ocean floor and detect changes in water pressure to alert scientists using telemetry that a tsunami can and will happen.
Tying in with ROVs, photogrammetry software typically uses pictures taken by ROVs to recreate underwater structures in 3D. Sometimes it uses photos taken by divers. After all of the photos are collected, scientists will feed everything into the software, which will essentially preserve everything as it is digitally. This is important because over time, things wear down, especially when exposed to things like salt water, constant ocean currents, sediment abrasion, and more. So overall, you can visit a shipwreck once, then be able to review it however many times you want, over and over again, without ever stepping a foot in the ocean. In recent years, photogrammetry has been used to document how coral reefs are doing with minimal human disturbance. Coral reefs are being threatened by humans, pollution, and climate change. This technology helps scientists closely monitor ecosystem health.
Photogrammetry is very interesting. I'm wondering if it could be used to generate video game maps. Anyways, the next topic is GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, which I'm sure most of us are familiar with. Used in everyday apps like Google Maps, Waze, and my favorite example, Pokemon Go. I know I'd be lost like a buffoon right now without GIS, so I thank the genius who made it up. But simplified, it's another data collecting thing. It stacks data like a sandwich. The bottom layer is regular geographic data, like trees, grass, rocks, and all that jazz. Then the other layers are buildings, roads, and depending on what you're looking at, maybe even the locations of water hydrants and pipes. And that data is stacked to be able to view it on simple devices so you know where the location of things are. In the context of the ocean, it maps and analyzes data to be viewed in 3D, like deep-sea canyons and vents, the depth of the seafloor, marine habitats, and much, much more. GIS is also used to track shark migrations, protect marine life, and plot stuff like managing disasters like cleaning up oil spills and picking up the best spots for offshore wind farms. I would even argue that GIS is the most important invention in this episode.
Yes, Skylar, I second that. I use Apple Maps or Google Maps in my everyday when, trying to find a location that I'm not familiar with. Moving on to something that I'm sure we're all familiar with, Sonar. Sonar, short for Sound Navigation and Ranging, is a modern way of mapping our oceans through the use of sound. Sonar is used to create comprehensive nautical charts and map the ocean floor. It is also used to locate seafloor hazards, such as shipwrecks. Now, when we speak about sonar, it's important to know what kind of sonar you're talking about. There are two primary types of sonar, active and passive. Active sonar involves actively emitting acoustic signals which will bounce off of objects and return to the sonar transducer as an echo. By determining the time between transmission of the sound wave and the time it was received again, the transducer can determine the range and orientation of the object. Passive sonar is primarily used to detect noise from marine objects such as submarines or large ships. Also, marine organisms such as whales. Unlike active sonar, it does not emit its own signal, allowing for observation of the ocean in its natural state. It can only be used to detect existing sound waves. Unfortunately, it cannot measure the range of an object unless it is used in conjunction with other passive sonar instruments. And sonar is further divided into dozens of specialized versions, such as multi-beam, side scan, synthetic aperture sonar, single beam, hull-mounted, and dipping.
Submarine. Yellow ones, specifically popularized by the Beatles, are probably the most famous of the inventions related to marine biology in this episode. I'm sure you all know what a submarine is. Shout out to my JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fans listening. One of my favorite scenes in the entire show is when Polnareff and Calculate do their handshake in a submarine. Anyways, a submarine is a class of boat that is capable of independent operation underwater. A submarine can be an all-encompassing term that refers to any vehicle underwater, like ROVs, AUVs, or robots. So you can technically call all of those things submarines. Supposedly invented in 1620 by a Dutch inventor named Cornelius Drebbel. The most Dutch name I've ever heard. It was an enclosed wooden rowboat covered in waterproof leather, using pig bladders as its go down and go up mechanism, being filled with air to surface. And this relatively simple boat has evolved into engineering marvels, the most advanced as of 2026 being the U.S. military's Virginia-class battle submarines, featuring the greatest stealth sonar, attack, and even more offensive capabilities, all the while being nuclear-powered. The submarine that broke the record for the greatest depth with a person inside of it and pushing human limits is the DSV limiting factor, reaching about 11,000 meters or 36,000 feet, the same distance that airplanes fly up into. And you can see how high they are, all the way up in the sky. In the context of marine biology, submarines are used to study the ocean. Well, no duh, but specifically man subs are used in place of scuba divers who can't go to extreme depths to record and to observe new and already discovered species, collect samples, and if you're a millionaire, vacation for some reason. Using very basic science, the fundamentals of how they work are simple. They use ballast tanks, a controlled type of tank outside of a sub that the crew fills with water or air to make the submarine heavier and sink down. Of course, this involves buoyancy, another simple concept that even a child can understand. The upward force that a fluid exerts on an object immersed in it. If the buoyancy of the fluid is greater than the immersed object's weight, then it floats. If less, then it sinks. It's like filling a balloon with helium and seeing it rise in midair. It's the same principle.
Trawls, or in simple words, is a big fishing net pulled by a boat. In terms of science, researchers do this to gather samples of creatures from not-so-easy-to-reach places. Another use of these is fishing, specifically bottom trawling, which is the practice of using one of these giant big fishing nets, hence the name, drags it on the bottom of the seafloor. Bottom trawling is actually very destructive. When the net drags, you're disturbing the sand, mud, plants, and animals, pretty much just leaving a massive path of destruction. Another concern is non-targeted marine life getting caught in these nets. A solution put in place were turtle exclusion devices. These pretty much just made sure that if you accidentally caught a turtle, it could safely swim out and not get stuck, while everything else, fish and shrimp, stayed in the net.
Yes, if any of you have ever seen the documentary Ocean featuring David Attenborough, that features a never-before-seen footage of industrial trawling and what it does to the seafloor. It's very gripping footage, if any of you have seen it. I believe that it's available on Disney+. Now, moving on to something that is often mentioned in scientific literature these days, environmental DNA, also known as eDNA. So, eDNA is taken from the environment at large rather than an individual. In that way, it gives you the DNA of that environment. In this case, DNA is taken from the ocean. It is often used to determine the presence of different marine animals. As marine creatures go on about their lives, they're going to release mucus, dead skin, feces, gametes, scales, and hair. By taking samples of seawater or marine sediments, we are able to determine the presence of numerous different marine organisms from one single sample and mass. It is extraordinarily important for biodiversity surveys, conservation of endangered species, and mapping invasive species. They are also incredibly useful in assisting governmental organizations with environmental compliance by ensuring that infrastructure projects do not overlap with protected species.
So another type of technology we will be talking about are expendable bathythermographs, or shortened for actual normal humans to pronounce XBTs. The technology in this one is pretty simple and straightforward. They're dropped from a boat sinking thousands of feet into the depths rapidly, and is connected to a wire that sends temperature and depth data back up to the boat. After its job is done, like the clone troopers from Star Wars, they're just meant to be expendable, as you can tell by their name, and the wire that connects the XBT to the boat is released, and the XBT is then left at the bottom of the ocean for the rest of its life. Pretty sad, but unlike the clones from Star Wars, they don't have emotions or personalities, and they really are just expendable objects.
Yes, indeed. Those are paramount in monitoring the deep sea, a very important task these days. So moving on to a very interesting new innovation, pop-up satellite archival retrieval tags, which are often abbreviated as PSATs. So pop-up satellite archival tags are advanced tracking devices used to monitor large migratory marine animals, such as sunfish, blue sharks, and tuna. It functions as an archival tag, also known as a data logger, to transmit collected data via the Argos satellite system. Data is physically stored on the tag throughout the process. These tags will track things such as location, depth, temperature, oxygen levels, and body movement data. These are integral in determining migrational patterns, distribution, and the overall behavioral patterns of large migratory marine life, as when they're out at sea on the open ocean, it can be very difficult to know what they're doing.
See-through is another revolutionary technology developed by the University of Halifax. It is a computer program used with underwater photography that removes a very obvious "I am under the ocean" look that underwater photos have. Like the blue filter, and it changes all the colors, How it works is that it applies a filter to the photo, removing yellows and reds. Then it uses a depth math on the picture to analyze the objects in the picture, and finally using complex math, or not so complex math depending on who you ask, to add the missing colors it removed. It matters and is so revolutionary because it shows the world what sea life looks like to the animals that live there instead of how we see it. Not only that, it also makes gathering data underwater easier because of how much more visible it is. I highly recommend looking more into this because of how much clearer the photos are than what you are most likely used to.
Yes, indeed. It's wonderful to live during one of the greatest times for underwater photography. Moving on to another invention, this one is a bit more complicated. It is affectionately referred to as DISCO, or Diver-Operated Submersible Chemoluminescent Sensor. So, DISCO is a marine technology invented by the brilliant scientists over at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. Superoxide, a chemical produced by all breathing organisms, is a toxic byproduct of respiration, and it's also highly unstable, which means that it exists for extremely short periods of time in the ocean. So to understand why exactly superoxide is important, and why it was important enough to develop a sensor for it, we're all going to need a little bit of a chemistry lesson. So to create energy, our cells will extract electrons from fats and carbohydrates and transfer them to oxygen. When an oxygen molecule takes 4 electrons, it then combines with hydrogen to form water. Interestingly, this process can sometimes go wrong, particularly when organisms are stressed out. When oxygen only takes 1 electron, it becomes a compound known as superoxide. This new unpaired electron makes it extremely reactive and rather unstable. To become more stable, it will either take another electron or lose an electron. This means that it will take electrons or give electrons to nearby cells, causing destructive chain reactions. It has been linked to premature aging, cancer, and numerous other negative health side effects in humans. Scientists suspect that superoxide may be responsible for increasing stress on coral reefs, which makes them more vulnerable to disease, heat waves, and bleaching. Up until now, a link between these two things has only been indirectly identified in laboratory settings, never out at sea. So, instead of bringing the sea to a laboratory, Colleen Hansel and her postdoctoral scientist in her laboratory brought their laboratory to the sea. They innovated a device that they could pump water into using a weighted tube, which would then be lowered into the water. As this water was brought in, a separate chemical is pulled in, which binds to the superoxide. Once it was analyzed, the data could be transmitted to Dr. Hansel's laptop via Bluetooth. This rudimentary device was powered by lithium batteries. They tested it out at Oyster Pond in Cape Cod, and though finicky, it worked. After getting back on dry land, Hansel began working with biogeochemist and deep-sea technician Scott Wankel to devise what would later become disco. Wankel and Hansel, who have been married for 11 years, first sketched out the idea on a napkin, as all great ideas are. This sketch would evolve into a suitcase-sized, portable device with hand-operated buttons and a readable display screen. In collaboration with engineer Justin Capit, they created a more streamlined version of disco, one made of inert materials such that superoxide could not react with it. On its maiden voyage on a joint Cuban-American expedition to the Gardens of the Queen reefs in Cuba during October of 2017, it gave meaningful measurements that would change our understanding of the interactions between superoxide and coral reefs forever. Around corals belonging to the hardy genus Porites, scientists discovered that there were extremely high concentrations of superoxide, sometimes 100 times more than the surrounding water. This begged the question of whether or not superoxide provides some kind of physiological benefit to coral, a question we still don't have the answer for. After the maiden voyage, a sleeker version was designed by previously mentioned engineer Justin Capit, which would later be tested in the Caribbean during the summer of 2018. Modernly, scientists at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute are working on a second generation of disco known as Solaris, which will allow for superoxide detection in the deep sea. Yes, this is a very fascinating topic that I highly encourage you all to browse the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute website and read more about. It was very interesting, and it was one of my favorite topics to research for this episode. But it wasn't my favorite. The Great Bubble Barrier, which is one of my favorite topics, is an innovative solution to marine, coastal, and river pollution. The Great Bubble Barrier, as the name would suggest, is a barrier created by bubbles meant to stop pollution. It functions by creating a bubble curtain through a perforated rubber tube at the bottom of a waterway, whether that be a canal, river, stream, or some such. These bubbles will rise and create a diagonal curtain across the waterway, pushing debris into a catch area. It was first instituted in Amsterdam in 2017 and has been catching plastic as well as other debris ever since. Amazingly, it does not interfere with regular river operations or local marine life and is operational 24/7. It has an 86% catch rate, removes approximately 80 kilograms of debris each month, and can catch debris as tiny as 1 millimeter in diameter. Thus far, it has been instituted in Amsterdam, Via Ducand, Katwijk, and Harlingen. To learn more about this very fascinating project, we encourage you all to browse their website over at thegreatbubblebarrier.com.
Sadly, that brings us to the end of our episode. We hope that you enjoyed today's installment of the Marine Enthusiast Podcast, and make sure to subscribe for more intriguing episodes like this. Don't forget to connect with us on BlueSky, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Marine Enthusiasts. Continue to be passionate and as curious about marine creatures as possible and share this with the marine enthusiasts in your life. Remember to like and comment your thoughts. With that being said, this has been the Marine Enthusiast Podcast. Goodbye, marine enthusiasts.
Bye.
Goodbye.